Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, very sunny Barbados. I'm out here to close out a transaction that we've been doing with my good friend Gabe, and I just noticed that YouTube took down some of my content, and in the strangest possible way. So I made a video talking about how we would go about building a decentralized social network, talking about things like veracity bonds and information markets and how people would curate information and the different ways that information can flow. And I used several examples inside that video. I just received an email literally just a little while ago from YouTube saying that that had been taken down because I'm spreading medical misinformation. In a video about curating social networks, in a video talking about how to build a decentralized social network that I've shared with Elon Musk and other people. And apparently that video is so threatening and so damaging and so evil that the algorithms of YouTube have to take it down because I'm spreading medical misinformation. A lot of Americans and a lot of people throughout the world are starting to wake up and realize that we inadvertently, in the 90s and 2000s, handed over power of publishing and information curation to a small group of companies that collude with governments to control the narrative and flow of information across the world. And they've done this at a scale we have never seen before in human history. The cryptocurrency industry, in part, not only gives you your money back and your identity back, but also gives you your voice back, the freedom and flow of information. It's a really important thing. And it's very clear that now human beings aren't even making decisions anymore about the wholesale censorship of information. If a person mentions something like COVID vaccine or the COVID response, regardless of context, it can be weaponized and used to basically deplatform an entire message, an entire person, and with repeated offenses to remove channels altogether, saying we have to curate our community. I'm sorry, there's a very simple axiom here. If you are on the side of people trying to censor speech, you're not the good guy. You're the bad guy. There's no period in human history where the people censoring others and preventing the free flow of ideas, dialogues, and communities from forming have ever been virtuous. And the reality is we have handed to a very small group of people near total control over these things. This is one of the most long-term existential things in the cryptocurrency industry, and it's something that we have to figure out. We're masters of decentralized engineering. We're masters of tokenomics. We're masters of incentives. We're masters of distributed systems. We can figure this out as an industry. And there's a lot of great people in the industry from Farcaster and everywhere in between who are thinking about and trying to sort this problem. There's even some projects on Cardano. So I'm building Midnight. We got a lot more work to do with Cardano, and we're starting to get to a point where we see a scale in these systems that can allow billions of users. And at that point, it makes sense for us to get involved in the decentralized social network game. It's existential at this point. I don't care if it's good business or bad business. I don't care if $1 is made or $1 billion is made. It is a human right, the freedom of expression, the freedom of association, and our freedom to connect with each other, our freedom to build societies with each other, our freedom to think about things, talk about things, even when we're wrong. And if you are listening to this and you're on the other side of it, you really have to ask yourself, do you feel comfortable living in a society where arbitrarily and capriciously people you've never met, in some cases algorithms that you have no influence and control over, have total domination over what you're allowed to say, think, and feel? And if you fall outside of that, you lose the most vital thing that all humans have, our ability to connect with each other, communicate with each other. And before you say, well, it's a free company, it's a private company, it doesn't matter, these aren't private companies anymore. They've become public institutions unto themselves. If every single American gets all of their news, gets all of their interactions and their entire experience of the world through a small handful of companies, they're no longer free companies, especially when those companies collude with the government. The government goes to them and says, hey, we want to censor certain information. We want to change narratives, or we don't like this person, so can you only promote news that says they're bad versus good? That's no longer a free society. That's a public-private partnership to use the private industry to do your dirty work. And it's no more moral there than it is when the CIA works with private companies to do torture, or when the military works with private military contractors like the Blackwaters of the world to go and fight the wars so they don't have to report casualty figures when people die in the theater. I'm sorry, when the government pays for it, endorses it, and works with it, it is an extension of the bureaucracy. And these mega companies are allowed to exist and aren't broken up through the Sherman Antitrust Act or any other remedy because they're useful and convenient to the people who have power. And this is one very small example, but it's a meaningful example. The video was literally about how to build a decentralized social network, and citing medical misinformation, it was deplatformed from a centralized social network. Think about that. That's where we're at in 2024. And 1 or 2 elections from now, we'll be in a position where this is all criminalized, and those public-private partnerships go from the shadows to formal institutions of the state. We're perilously close to a Ministry of Information and to a repeal of the First Amendment. Getting very close to it. And I feel it, we taste it, we see it, and people are legitimizing, justifying it by slogans and buzzwords, and they label stuff certain ways. That is not a society I want to live in. That's not a society you want to live in. Truth requires controversy. Truth requires the capacity to offend. Truth requires the ability to make mistakes and be wrong. And most importantly, it requires all of us to talk to each other, engage with each other, and together figure things out. Truth does not require a curator who sits at the top and arbitrarily and capriciously decides who's right and who's wrong, especially when that decision's influenced by who pays them. So thanks, YouTube, for yet again proving why we have to win and why cryptocurrency should exist. You're the best marketing we could ever ask for. Cheers, everyone.